A grieving widow seeks help from the master. She fears her only child is near death. "Why me? He's the light of my life. He's all I have left," she weeps. When the master looked at the child, he realized that it had already died. He smiled at the woman and agreed to help her if she would do one thing for him. Anxiously, the woman ran into town and rang the bell of the first house she came to. She told the woman at the door she needed a glass of water from a house where there had been no death. The woman looked at her in amazement. The lady at the door told the woman, "Good luck. You won't be able to find anyone who hasn't experienced death." Undaunted, the woman continued her search. But by nightfall, she still had no glass of water. She realized she'd been fooling herself all along. Deep in her heart, she knew that her child was already dead and that death was inevitable. She went before the master and asked for liberation, telling him, "I know now that death is not personal or some form of punishment. It's just part of life. Please, show me that place inside of myself which never dies."
We're here at the Museum of Man here in San Diego to talk about death. And as you can see, our evolution. It's a very interesting evolution. This is what we started out like, and this is how we end. We have a hard concept with the idea of life and death. Most people don't understand life because they're afraid of death. And we denote what life is by defining death. We think that death is when a person ceases to exist in body, when their functions cease to exist. But that has nothing at all to do with the real death of a person. Please listen to me for a moment. As long as you and I believe that there is an end to our life, we will always be running all of our life from death. We will live in constant fear. And we'll look at our bodies as though they are the point and origin of all of life. And when we look at our body as the point and the origin of life, we miss the consciousness and the capacity of ourselves as a spiritual being. It may be true that humankind started out like this, but it doesn't mean that we started here and end here. This has nothing at all to do with life itself. This is just a vessel for life. The deepest experience of life is trying to happen within us, within the very depths of us, beyond our mind and beyond our body. The little story that we were looking at with Buddha is a very important story. A story about a woman who brings her baby who has died to Buddha, wants Buddha to bring the baby back to life. But Buddha cannot do that because the fate of the child is not in the tragedy of the death of the body, but the fate of the child may be in something of the continuation of that soul into places that our mind and our ego and our bodies can't go. I think it's very important that we come to terms with death right now, because if we don't understand death, all of our spirituality will be lost. We will start to live a religiousness, a religiosity as I like to call it, and that's my word, where we try to create some sort of reward after our death for the things that we are living in this life. This is just pure baloney. And it's just a way in which we postpone our livingness. Life begins this very moment with you and me, beginning to confront our death experience, our deepest one. And it isn't the one where our bodies stop. It's where our mind ceases. I have a little Greg Penn theory about this, and you don't have to believe it. And I don't know if it's necessarily true. But for me, it seems rather real right now in my life, and I'm kind of going with it. And that is simply this: that death cannot take me away from myself. I will always have me. I will always be me. Whether I'm in this vehicle that this time I call Gregory or another vehicle, it doesn't really matter. If I am running away from my death, if I am afraid of death, I will never be able to bring myself to this moment where life is happening. Life will always be wherever I am. It won't matter if I have one of these bodies or not. I'll always be me with that life experience in me. As that is a basic psychology, from there we can move into life with the dynamics that we didn't have before. Now, instead of running away from death by trying to cram in all the experiences and trips and dreams that we have and trying to conquer the world and make a better life for ourselves based on the premise of what we get and have and where we go, maybe we could start concentrating on the moment. Maybe we would find life as it is right now here. Maybe instead of fantasizing about a hereafter, we would be more aware of what's going on in the here and now. After all, that's where life is happening. And when you and I begin to understand that we can't stop death, that it's going to happen, then we can start moving to our feelings of life. Life is a feel, it is not a thought. If you live your life through your mind, you will always believe that death is the end of your life. You will always be looking for a reason for life. You will be looking for a cause and a purpose, and therefore you'll miss life experience. But if you look deep inside of yourself and live from your feelings, from the heart and the soul of you, you will never confuse what you think with who you are as life. You will begin to have a sense of appreciation for life as a quality that has always lived within you and always will. And though in this experience of life we have taken on some interesting physical forms, it doesn't mean that we are limited to that form. There's a form to us that goes beyond the physical. It's the form that we call consciousness. Consciousness is probably the greatest expression of life that there is. It goes beyond human comprehension, it goes beyond human ego, and brings us to the moment of the real life, and that is love. You and I were not created in the image and likeness of God physically, but spiritually. And we have the opportunity in this life to get the feel of our livingness back. So how we define life and how we define death become very important. If I define life as what happens to me around me, what happens to me to life. And if I define death as what happens to me when I die in the form of a hereafter, then I'm going to always live in fear of death. There will always be that subtle fear that I didn't do enough in this life, or I could be doing more, or there's something better to be doing. Then I miss my life experience. I love what this woman said to Buddha. She said, "Show me that place within myself where life is, where death does not exist." What a wonderful thing to ask. She was saying, help me look within myself to find me as life, as what I really am. Obviously, this woman, through the death of her child, realized that she was not a body, that there was more to life than the cessation or the functioning of the body. It is my sense, and this is just a Greg Pennism, and you don't have to believe this, but I think the deepest and only sin that we commit, the greatest mistake, is that of confusing life and death with a body. When we start thinking that what is happening to us and around us is life, or if that is not happening to us is death, we miss the whole experience. And then we start living in a subtle fear that overtakes our whole life. Now, everything we do is to run away from death, not to become a part of our life experience. It seems in this country that we are obsessed with this idea of youth. And I think one of the obsessions of youth is because we're afraid to die. We're afraid to understand what it means to really die. This has a tremendous and significant and profound effect upon us personally, and I'll tell you how. When you start getting involved in your spiritual process, it is a process. It's a process of shedding and letting go, not defending and keeping. And when we start getting into the process of ourselves, we start to have feelings that we've never had before. Some of the feelings are quite painful. Some of the feelings bring about great hurt. That process feels like we're dying. Oftentimes I've been in this process. And I've asked myself, shouldn't I start feeling better the closer I'm getting to myself? But the truth is, the closer I get to myself, the more honest I have to be with me. And the more it seems like I'm dying. My ego's dying, my fears are coming up, my anger's coming up. I'm having a real opportunity to see those things which I have stuffed, those things about myself that I've repressed. And now for the first time I understand that life is not a matter of years. Life is not a matter of what has happened to me or hasn't happened to me, or the places I've gone or the places I haven't gotten to go. I begin to understand that life is a feeling. It's found only in a feeling. When I want to find that which lives within me, which never dies, as the woman asked Buddha, I am in tune with the infinite. I've asked finally the right question. I am seeking finally the right thing. When I'm asking that my life get better because I want a new car or a new home or more money or a better job or a new wife or a new husband or whatever you want, I'm asking the wrong questions. When we think about our life, we think about what is happening to us, not the quality of it. The quality of life and happiness isn't a matter of accumulation of things. It's a quality of consciousness that's trying to happen. When the quality of my consciousness is here and now, when I'm willing to accept that which I have and that which is now, when I'm willing to be with whatever's around me as well as within me, then I'm starting to ask the right questions. I want to find those things within myself that bring me a sense of significance. Most people lose the significance of themselves through what they call life. They think that significant things must happen to them before they can be significant. If they're driving a great car, they must be important. If they have an important job, they must be successful. If they look sexy, they must be desirable. All of this is just malarkey. The quality of a person's life depends upon where they're living from within themselves. If we're living from our heart, the quality of our life is awesome. If we're living from our head, it is very tentative. And we will always be worried that we don't have enough things or places or objects, that we didn't do enough with our life to make it even matter. And when we start living like that, we're already dead. The real question is to find out that place within us where life really lives. When we can feel that, and it is a feeling, something wonderful's happened to us, a miracle. I've always loved the story of Jesus resurrecting Lazarus from the dead, because to me it is symbolic of raising up a person in this lifetime, not who has physically died, but who has died in their head, and bringing them back to their heart. If a great master does anything for us, they bring us back to the significance of our life. They bring us back to the heart. Where does he come up with this stuff? Is it really that easy? We thought we would wrap up in this room with all of these faces staring at us and staring at you. These were faces of people who were alive, and you can see the life in their eyes and the death in their eyes too. Because when we live our life out of a sense of fear, our bodies are just mere vehicles. We don't even get to understand what they were really about, nor our life. We begin to look at life as a series of events and not a movement that was trying to happen within us. It's interesting to see all these faces looking at us. They're measuring the amount of intelligence that they had. I think the intelligence is where you live from, not how much you think. I hope in some way this program has helped you understand that as long as you and I live our life as a form of fear, we will never understand or appreciate the life that lives within us. Okay, I'm sure you've got some questions, some things that are on your mind, so why don't you shoot? What's the first thing that's on your mind? You know, this is all easy for you to say. How can you accept death when somebody really young dies? How can you accept death when it happens to somebody really young? Gregory, don't you know that it doesn't matter how long a person has lived? Who are we to know what qualities a person got in the moment of their life, even if they lived just for a second or two? What that was all about, what that meant. There had to be some significance to that. I've looked at babies that have died. You know, I've been in the hospital with people who have had babies and they were stillborn. The parents always think it was such a tragedy because we measure life by longevity and not by quality and moments. Maybe something came in with that child that was to be a gift to the parents that would touch their life forever. What we tend to do is try to erase that bad memory. Life is a mystery. It has to be followed from within oneself. It can't be something that we just think about from occasion to occasion or from rationale to rationale. It has to be a mystery that we flow through. And if we won't allow ourselves to celebrate death as we've celebrated life, we'll never appreciate what's going on this very moment. Life is a celebration, both in death and in life. What else is on your mind? If my ego dies, doesn't my personality go along with it? Yeah, probably. The personality that you and I have will probably be gone. When the ego's gone, also our worries will be gone. Our fears will be gone. Our worries in the sense of what is going to happen to us or what has happened to us will be gone. Our neurosis will be gone. I would really say it's a much better trade to give up the ego for personality any day. Gregory, why are you so worried about your personality and your ego? Don't you know that what happens to you in life doesn't happen because of that? It happens because of what lives within you? Something to think about. What else, Gregory? You know, Greg, I'm more afraid of old age than I am of dying. We have a thing about age, don't we? There's something about age that upsets us, and here's what it is. The body tends to change form, and we don't change within ourselves. And that kind of freaks us out a little bit. We start thinking, I still feel like I'm 20 or 30 years old, and here's my body at 70 and 75. I'm looking at some of the busts that sit around me and the faces of different aged people. And on the inside, they think they haven't changed at all. Isn't it interesting how we cannot gracefully surrender those things of youth that we might find that age has its beauty and its power? In my opinion, Gregory, age is about gracefully letting go of both the body, the times, and the circumstances of different periods within our life. In fact, if you look at life truly, you will find out it's a matter of ultimate let go. So don't be worried about your age or how you look. Be concerned about what's going on within you. I know some people who are up in age who are much younger inside and live much more a life of youth and compassion and love and vitality than some people I know who are half and a quarter their age. It's all within here, not within here. But what if I die before I get to do all the things I want to do? You'll never die before your time to die is ready. And what I mean by that is when you're ready to pass on, live your life as though every moment counts. Don't live your life in fear of your death. Live moment to moment to moment, and every moment will be significant, and you will never, ever, ever outlive yourself. Namaste. Well, that's easy for me to say now.
Just believe we can be everything. Aspire. Just believe we can be everything. Aspire.
There's probably nothing in the world we run away from more than that of death. We're so afraid that we're going to die that it will be the end of our life. The worst death in the world is not the death of our body. It is the death of something within us. And let me give you a couple of ideas on this. There is the death of us, when we're not in process, of what I call our spirit, or the death of our soul, where we cut the soul off or our spirit off, and it no longer seems to exist in us. We see many people running around very dead all day long. Nothing excites them, nothing brings out the insight, nothing brings out the joy of their life. They have a very difficult time loving. They're dead. And there's nothing there. They live for objects and people and things to happen to them. You can tell if you're dead. Can you be happy without anything happening? No, you don't have to think of a pleasant thought or anything. Can you just be happy sitting there right now, wherever you are, and feel it? That's happiness. That's life. Now, there's another kind of death. There is the death of that part of us that brings about life. When I am willing in my process to let go of the things that scare me, that frighten me, that take away my life. It's a new beginning. When a person is willing to have that kind of death experience, the death of the ego, the death of the pride, the death of the worry, where one says, you know, I'm going to take the risk to love my life, I'm going to take the risk to live my life, I'm going to take the risk to get beyond the things I've been afraid of and to move towards myself instead of away from me. That death is the one that brings about life. That's the one that Jesus talked about, Buddha talks about, Lao Tzu talks about. It is the death of the ego, and it brings about the spirit and the soul and the quality of a person. When we're willing to go through that transformation, and it's a rocky one at times and a very difficult one, we begin to see that our evolution is real. The evolution of humankind is not going from apes to human beings. It's from going from unwise or silly or foolish, as Buddha would say, into the wisdom of our heart. From our head to our heart is the evolution. And so few people make that track. Begin to look within yourself. Do I expect people and things to make me happy? If so, there is a very deep death that has occurred. But you can bring it back if you want. All you've got to do is remember that life lives within you, and the most important thing that is happening in your life is who you are. We're going to continue in our series next week on Aspire, so be with us. Namaste.